Hi, my name's Abdul Bangley, and I'm interested in game development because games have always been a part of my life growing up, and they've made such a huge impact in shaping my identity. Seeing people play my games and projects and having fun is something that excites me. Seeing it improve from a small prototype to a fully playable level shows how far I've come within that journey, which gives me a sense of pride. I want to be a level designer because I enjoy creating engaging spaces where players can test their skills using the game's mechanics, as well as providing a challenge for them to think critically on how to advance through a given scenario. Seeing great levels made in past games also motivates me to design something memorable for future players. I want to work at Treyarch because I know the studio has a successful track record of creating high-quality FPS games, and I want to learn from the industry's best developers to grow my skills. I've played previous Call of Duty games made by Treyarch, and I enjoyed my experience with them, and the idea of giving back to the studio with my skills and past experiences is one that excites me. Collaboration to me is 110% important because it is one of the most fundamental skills to creating any successful game. When team members collaborate, they can create a powerful synergy in which everyone contributes to an idea, and they end up creating an experience much better than what could have been made by an individual working alone. This can be done through many forms such as brainstorming sessions for new ideas or solutions, or team members improving their work via internal playtesting and critique. So in Warzone, I believe downtown in Verdansk works from a design perspective because it works best in terms of verticality, and the buildings complement well with the combat cover system. Coupled with having lots of loot, it draws players to this area. I believe the park just south of downtown doesn't work well from a design perspective since it features lots of open spaces, which makes players vulnerable to enemies that are already established in Promenade East and downtown during rotations. Fights within the park POI also don't offer much in terms of cover systems unless players fight around the cabin building on the northeast end of the park or the hatch on the southwest end. I would choose Apex Legends to be the pinnacle of Battle Royale because it does a lot of things differently than Warzone that make it a more enjoyable experience. In my opinion, the Apex ranking system is one of the most important, as I believe it gives an accurate representation of skill and it gives players something to work towards. I believe Call of Duty Battle Royales should loosen skill-based matchmaking for casual play and add a separate queue for ranked play for the more hardcore players. This helps to clarify the line of difficulty between casual and competitive play, as players can expect the level of engagement before they enter a game. Apex also has varied gameplay in terms of armor tier and guns, which promote a more diverse experience. There's a lot more things that I can go into, but for the sake of time, these are two of many aspects that Treyarch can consider to creating a better multiplayer experience. So in Black Ops 2, on the map Transit, one fundamental issue is how Pack-a-Punch is accessed. To access it, you need to use a wind turbine on the energy door at the power plant and go open the door to Pack-a-Punch at the town to access it. The problem with this is that there is a good chance the turbine can be destroyed by a nearby zombie, in which you have to go all the way to the bus stop to obtain a new turbine, make your way back to the power station to repeat the process, and pray that another zombie doesn't destroy it again. Doing this process once takes about 10 minutes, but players need to do this every time they want to upgrade their gun, which makes it like a whole side quest in itself. This then becomes tedious, and it creates long downtimes, especially when the player decides to do the keep one zombie crawler alive strategy. What I would change is to make this process a one-time thing, where after the player reaches the Pack-a-Punch room, the door right before it now stays open indefinitely. This solution would improve the player experience because now players have access to Pack-a-Punch at any time, and this is important because the player no longer has to slow the pacing of the game down to a grinding halt. This will reduce long downtimes, and players will now experience a more consistent map pace and flow. Whenever I begin designing a new level, I always start my pre-production process with a level design document. Essentially, at this stage, this is where I answer questions about the map's concept. What's the story behind the level, and what is the goal of it? How will it play out gameplay-wise, and what mechanics are available to the player? How long is the level's duration? What does the map flow look like? I answer all of these questions to become as familiar with the requirements of the level as much as possible. I also flesh out the beat requirements to go a bit more in depth on some of the more minute details so that I can understand the level of pacing from one part of the map to the next. I also establish metrics in order to nail down a sense of readability of the space for the player so they know they can run through a double doorway in case they're getting shot at or something. Things I specifically established metrics for are doorways, min-max metrics for corridors and hallways, wall height for each story of a building, cover heights for half cover and full cover, as well as spacing metrics from cover to cover. I will then begin looking for references, and I'll compile them on a mood board. I try to look for about 50 images for each section of my map, and then I'll cut it down to a few that really stick out to me. I'll then move on to my 2D map, where I quickly sketch out an initial layout, usually on gridded paper. I focus on the general layout as well as important gameplay elements such as item pickups, enemy placement, as well as potential scripted events. When I work on my blockouts, I'll create a rough mass out of the area to account for scale, composition, and general flow. This step isn't meant to look pretty because it's meant to get the gameplay objects in place to get it ready for playtesting. Once I get feedback, I'll make adjustments as I iterate. I'll repeat this process until the adjustments I make become smaller and smaller, in which I move to art. One of the design principles that I revisit is to fail fast and fail often, and this is especially apparent in my blockout phase. Through this practice, I embrace what doesn't work in my design, and I look to gain feedback to make those necessary adjustments. By going through this loop of tweaking and testing, I go through many iterations, but I eventually get closer to a final solution that will create an enjoyable experience for the player as well as accomplish the requirements of the level.